Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Got a full agenda today. We'll get started here in just a minute. Today, we'll be talking about apprenticeships, among other things.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Just looking for our grant managers here. All right, very good. All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining today for our Technical Assistance Tuesday office hours. Just a couple of quick announcements at the top here. Wanted to let folks know that the Energy Workforce Advisory Council has a currently has a vacancy open for a CEJA graduate. So if you have any graduates from a hub or Climate Works program, somebody who is kind of, interested in sort of the policy world, the Energy Workforce Advisory Council is looking to make an appointment there, and would love to get your application for that person, and I am going to post a link in the chat. So basically, the CEJA law requires the appointment of one member to the Energy Workforce Advisory Council who has participated in the workforce development programs created under CEJA. This is to ensure that participant perspective is included in the work. And this Advisory Council coordinates and informs on worker and contractor support priorities beyond current federal, state, local, and private programs and resources, advise and produce recommendations for further federal, state, and local programs and activities in the workforce realm. So, again, I am going to post a link in the chat as soon as I can get that over there. I want to make sure it's the current link here. And while I'm doing that, I also wanted to kick it over to Connor Bertrand for a reminder about our cash shutoff period. So, Connor, would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So just a reminder to submit any costs that you have, make sure that's uploaded to GRS, and then submit any cash requests you have. Um, Again, that's due by, I believe it's 3:30 on Wednesday is when they or on Thursday, excuse me, when they want them in by. Um, so I would say don't wait till the last day, because if you have an issue with GRS, like a login problem or anything like that, there's no guarantee that that'll get resolved in time. So please just make sure you log in and submit a cash request. Some common questions I had, um, you know, since it's going to be like a 2 or 3 week window pause, if you have some expected costs that are going to be like accrued in that time span, then you can go ahead and just include that now, since you won't get the chance. And I really do encourage everybody to make sure they submit those, just because they say it'll be 2 to 3 weeks, but they've said that before, and then it ends up being longer, and you don't want to be stuck for like a month with no cash request, because then when they do open it up, then it'll be a big wave of everybody else submitting them, and then it'll be another 2 or 3 weeks before those get processed. So really just make sure that those are submitted by 3:30 on Thursday, the 23rd. If you have any issues with accessing GRS, just let us know so we can get you in and get those submitted before they cut those off. So that's pretty much all I had.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. And anybody have any quick questions about the Energy Workforce Advisory Council or the cash shutoff? Okay. Well, if you do have questions, we should have time at the end of the session here to go over those. But wanted to introduce our guest speaker for today. So Nate Carlson is going to be our guest speaker, and he's going to be talking about apprenticeships. And Nate is the Technical Assistance Program Manager for Apprenticeship Illinois. So with that said, I will turn it over to Nate.
Good morning, everybody. Very grateful to be with you here all today to talk a little bit about registered apprenticeship programs, which are obviously integral to so much of the state's ongoing vision for work-based learning, and especially for everything that all the important work that you guys are doing with CEJA, it ties into. And so here to give a little bit of background, probably some that you've heard before, probably some new. The main headline that I want to communicate here is that Apprenticeship Illinois .com, the website right here, is a fantastic resource for you and for your partners as you engage in this work and this workforce development. I specifically hold open office hours Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So as you're sitting here for the next 30 minutes, if it feels like drinking from the fire hose or it's too much information and you're like, hey, I want to follow back up on this, please do. I am here as a resource. Please see me as an extension of your team as you look to develop registered apprenticeship programs with any employers in your areas. I am here to help. Having said that, I want to talk about Apprenticeship Illinois in general. Apprenticeship Illinois has two kinds of grantees that the state has funded, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. But again, the headline here is that we have a network of regional apprenticeship specialists throughout the state. You can find all of their information at apprenticeshipillinois.com and click on the Employers tab. Our specialist's role is to be a connector between employers and the USDOL to help them fully develop and register programs with the U.S. Department of Labor. So if you've got employers who are like, hey, we need to get on an apprenticeship, but we have no idea where to start, or we're intimidated, or we don't know about the bureaucracy of the DOL stuff, our specialists are a fantastic resource to connect them to. Again, they also connect employers with other intermediary partners and do service referrals. So really are a good almost mini hub for your area are these regional specialists, which again, you can find by going to apprenticeshipillinois.com/employers. You'll see all of our current specialists listed there by county. If by chance you go to that page and you don't see your county mentioned, I've got good news and bad news. You'll be working with me. I cover areas of our state that don't currently have a specialist. So rest assured, you're covered regardless. Either myself or one of our specialists will help any employers in your area. So that's a little bit about our specialists, and I can't emphasize enough what a great resource they are for you and your teams as you engage in this work. So what are apprenticeships? They're about earning and learning at their core, earning on the job, learning on the job, and also in a classroom environment. Apprenticeships are paid jobs, usually full-time jobs with benefits, and they're paid jobs from day one. That differentiates them from internships, which might be paid or unpaid. Apprenticeships are found in every sector. Oftentimes when we think of apprenticeships, we might think of the trades traditionally, or I always say like a 1600s blacksmith or, Star Wars. But apprenticeship is actually a contemporary workforce solution found across all sectors and occupations. If an organization has a role that requires training, more than likely that occupation is apprenticeable. There's over 1,300 occupations already approved with the USDOL as being apprenticeable. And so apprenticeships are open across all sectors, and they're also open to workers of all ages and backgrounds. Apprenticeships aren't just for young folks coming out of school. They could be for folks looking for a career change as well. And I always like to focus up top with this because I think it's important to kind of have like a guide for the work we do. And so I always like to center that apprenticeship can be a life-changing career opportunity for participants that can revive communities and revitalize businesses. Apprenticeship is a true meritocracy. Apprentices earn in reflection for their skill gains in real time. And I can't understate the value of that for folks who, maybe don't always necessarily know what their career trajectory looks like. In apprenticeship, people know what they have to do to earn that next step up on paper from day one. And there's a huge value in that for individuals, for businesses, for communities. So now we'll go through the 7 components of a registered apprenticeship program. And I know this sounds very exciting. We'll try and keep it moving. Not let it be too dry for you. But these are the 7 components of apprenticeship from USDOL. First and foremost, apprenticeship programs are business driven. This means that if an employer is working with myself or one of our apprenticeship specialists, we're never going to tell them what their program has to look like. They are firmly in the driver's seat. They know their sector, they know their occupations. There are guardrails and sort of minimum standards that we may have to refer to, but generally speaking, employers have final say on their program design. Our team is really here to help empower their vision and also ensure the quality for their program, since the ultimate end goal of apprenticeship programs is to retain skilled talent. We're definitely doing quality control to make sure, A, that the talent is skilled, and B, that they are retained. But apprenticeships, first and foremost, are business driven. It's not the state in the driver's seat. It's not USDOL in the driver's seat. It is the business in the driver's seat. Apprenticeships are a paid job. Specifically, apprentices earn a progressive wage schedule. What that means is apprentices earn a percentage of the journey worker or experienced worker wage rate for their occupation. So if it's an occupation where an experienced worker makes $27 an hour, the apprentice isn't going to start at $27 an hour. They're not going to be productive. They don't know the skills yet. They might start at minimum wage year 1. Year 2, they get a $4 raise that bumps them up to 19. And so it can be structured in many different ways, either reflecting their skill gains through competencies attained or through thresholds of time for how long they've been an apprentice. But regardless, they're seeing their compensation increase as their skills do in real time, which again is huge because that just doesn't exist in most employment circumstances. Certainly not mine. I never know when that next raise is coming necessarily. Apprentices do. Apprentices know what they have to do to earn that increase in their compensation from day one. Apprenticeship center on-the-job mentorship and learning. Mentorship is really at the heart of apprenticeship. When we think about that bond, that knowledge shared down between teacher and student, that's crucial. And so employers assign each apprentice an on-the-job mentor, and they also establish a ratio for each work site, or for all work sites rather, of journey workers to apprentices. This is in part to help facilitate learning, but it's also about safety, right? We don't want a circumstance where an employer realizes, hey, this would be a much cheaper bid if I could load up this work site with a bunch of apprentices. That could create unsafe working conditions. So by establishing these ratios for the work site, we help ensure that not only are the workplaces safe, but also that level of instruction is happening, that level of mentorship is happening. And so what exactly the mentor-apprentice, sort of relationship or check-ins look like is going to vary from occupation to occupation, from organization to organization. Apprentices might work directly alongside their mentors on the work site, or the occupation may not lend itself to that. So instead, they may have regular check-ins or trainings. The key function administratively that mentors serve for apprenticeship programs is that they monitor apprentices' progress and sign off on competencies in a competency-based program. In a time-based program, they may be the one logging hours towards specific skills on behalf of their apprentice. So the mentor is both a functional role and an administrative role. And so a number of training providers for apprenticeships now offer trainer services or leadership training for mentors, just to help ensure that the quality is there. And so as you're moving forward with any employers, if that's something they have interest in, I would say definitely reach out to the training provider, because especially community colleges are coming to realize, hey, we make a good amount of money off these apprenticeships, but we can't control what happens on the work site. We're not on the work site. We can control the quality of learning that happens in the classroom, but on the work site, that really comes down to the quality of the mentorship. And so more and more programs are kind of recognizing that, and so investing some time into the mentors as well. Apprenticeships include supplemental education. So apprentices learn on the job from their mentor, but they also learn in a classroom environment as well. This is to help ensure they get the best combination of theory and practice. They know the why behind what they do, but they also know the physical mechanics and have that muscle memory for the tasks they complete on the job. So apprentices receive at least 144 hours of classroom learning per year of their program, and that's per calendar year. In the vast majority of programs, this training is fully funded upfront by the employer. And this is huge for participants because this means they're receiving a debt-free education in addition to a structured career pathway with built-in compensation increases. This is huge. This might mean an associate's degree. This might mean some kind of industry credential of some kind. That might be CDL for CDL driver. That might mean an LPN or a CNA or an RN credential in healthcare, a licensed teacher certificate for education. Apprentices are receiving training on the job and in the classroom. And in the majority of programs, either a community college or an industry recognized third-party training provider are providing this classroom element. And it's important to note it doesn't have to necessarily take place in a classroom. It could be virtual. It could be a designated, learning space at the employer where they say, okay, this is normally the HR office, but Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 4, you come in here and do your trainings on the computer. That's great. Whatever it has to look like for each organization and occupation to make that work. And training can be front-loaded as necessary. Obviously, for something like a CNA or a CDL, they can't do the on-the-job training if they don't have the credential that's required to work in that occupation. So there's flexibility in how this is structured into the overall flow of a program. And again, all of this is customizable. The employer is in the driver's seat. Apprenticeships help facilitate diversity. Programs are designed to reflect the communities in which they're located through strong non-discrimination, anti-harassment, and recruitment practices that ensure access, equity, and inclusion. What this means is that all applicants, when an employer registers a program, they set standardized hiring requirements and a standardized hiring process to ensure that all applicants are scored equally and also receive equitable treatment throughout the application process. We don't have any situations where one apprentice does one phone interview and gets the gig, and one apprentice has to jump through a bunch of hoops. So that's standardized in part to help facilitate that. And I'll note that Illinois is also taking huge strides in making apprenticeships more accessible. We'll show our list of intermediary grantees down the line, but we're working with a number who specifically work with neurodiverse communities to make occupations in information technology and elsewhere accessible to autistic professionals, for example. So there's a lot of exciting work being done to help make programs accessible and equitable for everyone in the state of Illinois, and so we're so excited by that. Apprenticeships help ensure quality and safety. Skill competencies are standardized for each occupation to ensure the quality of training outcomes so that an employer in Missouri or Virginia or Florida or Hawaii or wherever can see that journey worker card in the completed apprentice's hand and know this means they know XYZ skill set. And then again, we talked about that work site ratio of journey workers to apprentices. As it relates to prevailing wage, this is especially important, because on a prevailing wage work site, apprentices will still receive their apprentice wage so long as that ratio is upheld. But if the employer breaks the ratio, tries to overload their work site with a bunch of apprentices, everybody there gets prevailing wage. So it's important, especially for those instances, to make note of that. Lastly, apprenticeships provide credentials. All apprentices who complete their programs receive a DOL certificate. Why it's doing this, sorry. Receive a nationally recognized journey worker certificate from US DOL. But oftentimes that's not the only credential that's built into these programs. I mentioned associate's degrees. We have programs that the training incorporates a bachelor's degree or a master's degree even in some of our education programs. So really, one thing I want to convey to you is that apprenticeship is a format that can be molded to fit almost any occupation, regardless of the level of training that's required. And so additional credentials, licenses, degrees, and certificates are often built into these programs in the program development stage. This isn't like a surprise where the apprentice gets there and they're like, surprise, you're going to do a master's in dentistry. It's like, going in, you'll complete these courses and attain these competencies. Okay, having covered some ground on what is registered apprenticeship, now we're going to pivot a little and talk about what are roles within Illinois' registered apprenticeship ecosystem. And so the first one we'll talk about is this idea of a program sponsor. And this word is confusing because in the vast majority of realms of human existence, the word sponsor means the person or entity who is paying for something. That's not the case in apprenticeship. In apprenticeship, the sponsor is the entity that is legally responsible for the apprenticeship program and maintains its documentation with the US DOL. So if we're talking about apprenticeship and we hear the word sponsor, it's almost like they're the program owner. They facilitate the program. They may not be the only ones involved, but they administratively have that function. And so who can be a program sponsor? Obviously, employers can be a program sponsor if they wish to, run that themselves. Honest unions, trade organizations, oftentimes, obviously, are program sponsors, but those aren't the only ones who can fulfill this role. Local workforce areas, community colleges, and community-based organizations can all also function in this role, which can be a huge help to employers who maybe they're trying to dip their toes into the work-based learning, but they don't really necessarily want to have a formal relationship with the U.S. Department of Labor. They're a little scared of them. We won't question that much too why. But if an employer doesn't want to be a sponsor, it's important to note then that apprenticeship isn't closed off to them because a community college or LWIA or CBO can fulfill that role on their behalf. Because again, the primary responsibility is making sure that apprentice information is kept up to date. It's a paperwork function. It's a case management function, but even because case management honestly is overselling it because it really is just like you upload the PDF and then you're done until they're done. Then you check that they're done and then they get mailed their certificate. It's a very basic system, especially compared to a lot of our folks who utilize lots of other systems in their work. Rapids is pretty simple, but we're happy to do that work on behalf of employers. An intermediary. I'm certain you've all heard this word before used in conjunction with apprenticeship. An intermediary organization provides services to apprentices as well as to apprenticeship employers. Services primarily are probably going to include case management, including wraparound or supportive services. It might also involve pre-apprenticeship skills training, whether that means ESL or bringing someone up to speed in terms of math or English competencies to help prepare them for the coursework they would complete as part of an apprenticeship program. And intermediaries can also be the entity that provides that classroom instruction piece. So we talk about high impact intermediaries as kind of the one-stop shops for employers participating in apprenticeships because we have a number of community colleges across the state. I'm thinking of Elgin Community College, Heartland Community College, Lakeland Community College, and there are many others as well, where not only do they function as the training provider for all of the apprenticeship employers who work with them, but they're also providing that hands-on case management and wraparound supportive services, potentially additional funding for each of those participants. And so we call those high-impact intermediaries because if you think of the employer experience, the way the state of Illinois has designed the system is that we have a specialist who's going to help them get that program registered. And then we have an intermediary who's going to handle it from there. So the employer reaps all of the benefits of this model of investing in skilled talent, but the actual legwork is almost exclusively done by other organizations. So they don't have to sweat it at all. And so that's why intermediaries are so huge because they take a lot of work, frankly, off the hands of the employer and off other organizations, which ultimately helps lead to higher retention rates. We know that when we've got a super invested community college partner who's doing weekly check-ins with apprentices, how's your coursework going? Do we need to refer you to the tutoring center? Are you having any issues with transportation or childcare that we can refer you to WIOA for? We know that has a huge impact on helping ensure that participants are retained. So intermediaries play a crucial role in our apprenticeship system. ATRs or apprenticeship training representatives. Illinois is what's called an OA or Office of Apprenticeship state. And now stay with me here. I know we're getting acronymy. What this means is Illinois does not regulate its own apprenticeship programs. DCEO does not regulate apprenticeship programs in the state of Illinois, nor do we have another independent, apprenticeship agency. Instead, all of our programs in Illinois are registered directly through the U.S. Department of Labor, the federal Department of Labor. And so The representatives of USDOL who we work with are called ATRs. So our specialists work with the ATRs directly on registering programs because they're the ones who sign off when we submit the programs. They're the ones who help ensure that all of our paperwork is in order. They're the ones who do any necessary monitoring from USDOL. And we work with them very closely, and we're very fortunate for that. They're great partners in program development. I always say our ATRs, if they see a program's coming over from myself or one of our specialists, they know, okay, this one's going to be good. We don't have to worry about whether or not this one's got a bunch of errors or was wholly AI generated. We know for sure that this one's going to be at least on solid foundation. So we work closely with our ATRs, and it helps streamline even further the process of program development and registration. Because that's the other thing I want to note is that we recognize that to a lot of employers, apprenticeship just screams red tape. It screams bureaucracy. It screams this is going to take so long. And I'll tell you, we've gotten programs registered in less than 3 weeks, less than 2 weeks. If the employer desire to make a program happen is there, and we've got great community college partners or great training provider partners in the area, we can make this process very, very efficient. I always say apprenticeships on paper are very simple. It is not hard paperwork-wise, information-wise to register or even administer an apprenticeship program. The most difficult part of apprenticeship and all work-based learning is the partnerships that are required between organizations, the partnership between the employer and the education provider, the partnership between the LWIA and the employer. All of these sort of network of stakeholders that are involved in making work-based learning happen. That's a lot of emails that a lot of folks got to read and reply to and make changes to Word docs and Excel spreadsheets. And that's where the rubber hits the road for apprenticeship development. So we are very good in Illinois, I think, about helping streamline this process, but I always like to note that this can be very easy, and ultimately we strive to make it easy. The difficult part is in facilitating those high-impact collaborations. We talked previously about our Apprenticeship Illinois specialists. The specialists are funded through awards provided to Illinois' local workforce areas. So our specialists are embedded in the business service teams of your local workforce areas and work on behalf of the workforce boards. And again, the specialists provide an end-to-end concierge service to employers looking to develop or expand or join an existing registered apprenticeship program. So it's not just an outreach role, it's also a connector role, and it's also a program development role. So it really is a one-stop shop for employers. We're not just making the sale, we are helping them facilitate their vision for what the program will look like. And so to give you some context for the broader state apprenticeship ecosystem, we can see here, I noted that Illinois does not have a state apprenticeship agency. What we do have is the IWIB and the IWIB's Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeship Committee, who in conjunction with DCEO provide leadership and guidance for Apprenticeship Illinois. And then DCEO has also funded these 2 categories of apprenticeship grants you see here, the apprenticeship specialists who are employer focused and the intermediaries who are participant focused. And so this is a list of our current apprenticeship specialists for 2026 to 2028. We have a much higher coverage of the state than previously, so hopefully you see your LWIA represented on this map. And again, if you do not, that means you'll be working with me, and so I can provide my contact information in the chat in a bit. But just know that regardless of where you are in the state, you've got partners to work with. This may be an LWIA you've worked with previously, but it also may be a staff member or a team member you haven't worked with previously from their team. As apprenticeship work, we have asked to be delegated where possible to specific individuals. So I can leave that up if anybody still needs it. If not, I'm going to keep on moving. But that is our list of apprenticeship specialists for the year. And we're very grateful to have them as a resource for employers across the state. And then this is our list of apprenticeship intermediaries. You'll notice it's longer and it's not broken down by LWIA, but rather by area of the state they serve. Obviously, we have a lot of organizations concentrated in Chicago and the collar counties, but we also have a fairly decent amount of statewide programs and programs working in central and downstate Illinois. So as you look at this list, what you're looking at is organizations who have received money to provide services to support apprentices in specific occupations that they have targeted. So if one of these organizations is in your area, that means they are already functioning in that role, which means if you have an employer who they could be a training provider for or a partner for, they've already got the infrastructure set up to support that. So these and the specialists both, I would say, are huge resources. Come on, folks. It's not Monday, it's Tuesday. These are huge resources as you move forward if any organizations are looking to develop apprenticeship programs, just because all of that work's already been done. All of that groundwork's already been laid, and we've got this structure and this system in place. And so that is going to conclude my presentation for today. But I would love to take any questions that you may have having watched that. Please feel free to unmute or throw those in the chat. I'm also happy to link any resources in the chat that might be useful. Please let me know. This time is your time. And again, I'm here to help you and your colleagues and partners as you do this work. So thank you for your time today. And I'll pass it back over to Nate and to Mikhail.
So again, yeah, if you guys have any questions for Nate after that lovely presentation, thank you for doing that, Nate. You can throw those in the chat, or as he said, come off of mute. We'll give you guys a little bit of time. I know it takes some time to process and think about what you are curious and wondering about.
Hi, good morning, Nate. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. And I definitely did learn a lot of information I did not know about apprenticeship as a navigator. I did wanted to know, as far as one of the purposes you mentioned, on-job mentoring, and how does the pairing of that happens for a journey worker and a apprentice? What would be that process?
Yeah, so that's handled on the work site or internally by the employer. And I'll tell you that this looks differently based on the organization and the occupation. In manufacturing or construction, the specific site managers or work site managers, they know who they do and don't want to pair with an apprentice. They know, all right, well, Joe takes a 15-minute break every 7 minutes, so maybe we're not going to make him a mentor. So, and that's why it's handled by the employer, because they know who they want to assign. Now, I'll tell you, in other occupations, it's a little more formal. Something like a registered nurse, they have educators or people who have taken on the certifications or credentials to provide that kind of one-on-one training experience. Similarly, in education, you have teachers who have received additional training to be, master teachers or lead teachers for their classrooms. And so they might be assigned that mentor role. But it's really, again, going to be based on the occupation and the organization holding the program. That's not to say that intermediaries don't often provide resources or make suggestions as to here are the kinds of individuals in your workforce who you might, individuals who demonstrate these leadership traits or have trained previously. And as I noted, a lot of community colleges will, for free, if an employer is utilizing their training services, will provide that train the trainer curriculum just because they also recognize the value of mentorship to these programs.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Nate Keener. I would just add in too that in terms of the CEJA ecosystem, I think the navigator role here would be connecting folks to the hub and or the ClimateWorks program that will have that apprenticeship relationship, just in terms of likelihood, right? Like somebody may come to the navigator with enough training to be able to get into an apprenticeship program, but I think probably most of our folks are going to be wanting to get into that training that will lead to an apprenticeship. Does that sound right, Nate?
Yeah, so I mean, pre-apprenticeship programs, ideally, I know are going to be a talent pipeline for folks to move into programs. Everybody's journey looks different. Again, so much of it comes down, I keep saying this, but to the occupation and the organization. Even within clean energy and these jobs, it's going to be a different work site. It's going to be a different company culture, and that's going to impact all of this. Whether they're wanting to take somebody from entry level to mid level or a high level technical role, or whether they're we want to do a little more incremental. We want to get somebody in once they've gotten that base level knowledge and kind of grow them from there. So there's a lot of factors that contribute to what the career pathways look like. But I would say, both pre-apprenticeship participants and eventual RAP participants could be served by your hubs and everything else. So.
Awesome, thank you. And then of course, we are calling on navigators to become experts on all of the different kinds of training opportunities and the different hiring opportunities and social service opportunities in your area, so you can be kind of that local expert on all of these things. So definitely appreciate the engagement. What other questions we have? I do see one in the chat, maybe a couple in the chat there. Do pre-apprenticeship programs have different requirements than CEJA, like CAPE testing and more? I think I can handle that, Nate. Sure. But if you have anything to add, for our ClimateWorks program, that is a pre-apprenticeship program, and so the ClimateWorks eligibility requirements will prevail there. And then I guess beyond that, each different pre-apprenticeship program, and maybe I can copy Nate here. It may depend on the occupation and the kind of training that's available, but for at least the CEJA side, the ClimateWorks eligibility is what will prevail there.
And one thing I'd like to stress again is that if all of this information has like totally locked in your brain and you're like, okay, I feel like an expert, that's great. I would love to pat myself on the back as a trainer and say that's the case for everybody on this call today, all 71 people. However, I recognize that this has been a lot of information and that your jobs are already highly technical and involve a lot of acronyms and a lot of different organizations. So again, please, the one takeaway I would ask that you have is that apprenticeshipillinois.com, we are here to help. If you have an employer who's interested, please refer them to your local specialist or to me, and we will take care of them and make sure that their program is developed and registered swiftly if that is a workforce solution that is right for them. So we are here to help. Please see us as an extension of your team, because we really are all serving the same workforce and developing the same workforce in different ways.
I appreciate that point too. And I think I wonder if we can pull the frame back even just a little bit more to say, and looking for your guidance on this too, Nate, is like, if our grantees are working with an employer and we're looking for a kind of a hiring solution, a matching skills to open positions need, we're looking for some paid work experience opportunities, apprenticeship may be a solution to that. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime that there is a need for skilled talent, especially, or just assistance in retaining skilled talent, because we know a lot of places, they can get folks in and 6 weeks later they're gone, and the tremendous turnover cost of having to recruit and then onboard for that position again. Anytime that there is a talent lackage or shortage for a skilled occupation, I would say apprenticeship may not be the automatic solution, but should definitely be kind of in your back pocket as a potential solution, just because it definitely has been beneficial to a lot of employers in those circumstances. So.
It's on the menu.
Yeah, absolutely. Apprenticeships are back on the menu.
All right, appreciate that. Any other questions for Nate, or anything else? CEJA, any other questions general to CEJA that we can answer?
I'll give a quick shout out to my NIU Workforce Policy Lab colleague, Candace Dickerson, who's on the line, who I know you all work with, because she's great. And she's working hard, and we're all working hard. So thanks, everybody.
Shout out, Candace. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we can end it there. I want to thank Nate Carlson for jumping on and giving us the lay of the land on apprenticeships. And feel free to reach out to him or your local regional apprenticeship specialists, and we would be happy to kind of help you with that process as well. So thanks again for attending, and we'll see you in August.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Good one.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Bye.